This is somewhat a true free agency for LeBron James because he didn't go into it with a calculation in mind, a plan in place, a hierarchy of Cleveland, Miami, Philadelphia. Golden State is the team that going into free agency was thought to be one of the leaders.
For more than 2 decades of watching NBA basketball, it's hard to remember a moment quite like this. We've seen blockbuster trades, shocking free agent moves, and endless rumors, but what just happened feels completely different. Former Golden State Warriors GM Bob Myers, the architect behind the Warriors dynasty, made a surprising appearance on Rich Paul's podcast. Instead of discussing league history or sharing stories, Myers openly explained why LeBron James should consider leaving the Lakers and joining another team. The destination he highlighted wasn't Golden State, it was the Philadelphia 76ers. That alone raised eyebrows. But the situation becomes even more surprising when you look at Myers' current position. After leaving the Warriors, he became the president of sports for Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, the ownership group behind the Philadelphia 76ers. In other words, he now works for the organization he's publicly promoting to LeBron. Normally, conversations like this happen behind closed doors. Team executives, agents, and front office personnel rarely discuss recruiting a superstar in public. If any information gets out, it's usually through carefully timed leaks to NBA insiders. Seeing a high-ranking executive make his case directly on the podcast hosted by LeBron's own agent is almost unheard of. The timing also matters. LeBron isn't holding traditional free agent meetings this offseason, meaning anyone hoping to convince him has to communicate through Rich Paul. That makes this public conversation even more fascinating, as it may have been one of the few opportunities to deliver a message directly to LeBron's inner circle, and perhaps the biggest coincidence of all. This discussion surfaced exactly 16 years after LeBron James made one of the most famous announcements in NBA history, a decision that changed the league forever.
In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
What's making this entire LeBron James situation so unbelievable is that
years after the decision shook the NBA, his future is somehow creating even more chaos than it did back in 2010. Back then, he was at the peak of his athletic prime.
today he's nearing the end of his legendary career. Yet the speculation surrounding him feels even bigger. The rumors aren't just unusual, they're downright confusing.
Massive contracts are being discussed that don't seem to fit the current market.
Old narratives about LeBron's legacy are resurfacing once again. And even the famous whiteboard that NBA fans were analyzing only a few days ago has reportedly already changed. Things are moving so quickly that it's becoming difficult to separate real developments from speculation. Before we dive deeper into everything that's happening,
I want to thank everyone who's been supporting the channel.
the past month has been incredible. And after 7 straight years of covering NBA news full time, we've just experienced one of the biggest periods of growth in the channel's history.
I truly appreciate every view, comment, and subscription because none of this would be possible without you. To celebrate, I'm hosting a huge giveaway for Grand Theft Auto VI.
If you'd like to participate, the process is simple. Subscribe to the channel, enable notifications so you never miss an upload, and make sure you're following on my other social platforms, including Snapchat, X, TikTok, and Instagram.
Winners will be selected from supporters across all platforms, so don't miss your chance. Now,
Let's get back to the story.
today's episode is brought to you by Arena Club, a platform that's changing how sports card collecting works. If you've ever wanted to collect trading cards but didn't want the hassle of organizing, storing, or protecting valuable collectibles,
Arena Club offers a modern solution. Instead of only receiving physical cards, users can keep their collection safely stored in a digital showroom or request shipment whenever they want.
digital slab packs start at affordable prices and contain authentic professionally graded cards, with every pack clearly displaying the odds and possible contents before purchase. That level of transparency removes much of the uncertainty collectors usually deal with. Another unique feature is the instant marketplace.
As soon as you open a pack, Arena Club can immediately make you a cash offer based on the card's current market value.
You can accept the offer instantly, keep the card in your digital collection, auction it to other collectors, or have it shipped directly to your home.
It gives collectors much more flexibility than traditional card buying. Now, let's return to the biggest NBA story. Everything really changed when Bob Myers appeared on Game Over, the podcast CEO hosted by Rich Paul and Max Kellerman. At first glance, it looked like another basketball conversation. But once you understand Myers' current position, the interview takes on a completely different meaning after leaving the Golden State Warriors and spending time as an ESPN analyst. Myers accepted a new role as president of sports for Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, the ownership group behind the Philadelphia 76ers. That means he is no longer simply sharing opinions as a media personality.
He's now an executive representing an organization with legitimate interest in adding LeBron James. So when Myers sat across from LeBron's longtime agent, Rich Paul, he wasn't speaking as a neutral observer.
He was effectively presenting a public recruiting pitch on behalf of an NBA franchise. Moments like this almost never happen in professional basketball, which is exactly why fans across the league immediately started paying attention.
If you're talking about the Sixers, I honestly believe this is your best chance to win. If it's about winning, let's talk about this team, because you can win here in Philadelphia.
Bob Myers carefully framed his message by saying, "If winning is the priority," a phrase that carried more meaning than it first appeared. The scene was surreal. The architect of the Warriors dynasty sitting beside LeBron's agent, publicly suggesting Philadelphia instead of Golden State.
Even Max Kellerman couldn't ignore how unusual it was.
We're on a show and we're talking LeBron. The guy who runs the Sixers is here. Oh, God.
Throughout the conversation, Rich Paul made one thing perfectly clear. The final decision belongs entirely to LeBron James.
No executive, analyst, or agent can choose his next destination for him. Bob Myers tried to downplay the significance of his comments, suggesting they were only opinions.
But if they carried no weight, why make a public appearance on LeBron's own agent's podcast in the first place?
The bigger question is why Philadelphia has suddenly become a serious option. Just days earlier, hardly anyone was connecting LeBron to the 76ers. That changed after Philadelphia reportedly pulled off a blockbuster trade, landing Jaylen Brown without giving up highly regarded rookie VJ Edgecombe. The move instantly transformed the team's outlook and created a lineup featuring Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid, while leaving room for another superstar on the wing. There's another interesting connection as well.
Maxey is represented by Clutch Sports, the same agency that represents LeBron James.
Soon after,
reports emerged that LeBron was giving Philadelphia's proposal genuine consideration, making the situation even more intriguing.
When the Sixers got Jaylen Brown, he's taking their pitch really seriously.
With Philadelphia now making its strongest public push, the message is impossible to ignore.
The 76ers have sent one of the most respected executives in basketball to speak directly on the platform closest to LeBron James' inner circle. That alone shows how seriously they're approaching this opportunity. But before we go any further, it's important to understand one thing that completely changes how this offseason should be viewed. Fans keep asking the same questions. Why hasn't LeBron announced a decision? Why aren't there public meetings with teams? And why is the biggest remaining free agent still keeping everyone waiting in the middle of July? The reality is that this isn't unusual for LeBron at all. In fact, it's become a pattern throughout his career. Whenever he reaches free agency, he prefers to move quietly while the entire league speculates. Think back to 2014. Every NBA franchise reportedly reached out through Rich Paul,
hoping for a chance to recruit him. Days passed without a single public clue. Then, almost out of nowhere, his famous Sports Illustrated essay appeared with the words, "I'm coming home," announcing his return to Cleveland. Each free agency has unfolded differently.
In 2010, there was the nationally televised decision. In 2018, the move to Los Angeles came through a brief statement with very little fanfare. The methods have changed, but LeBron's approach hasn't. He stays silent until he's completely ready.
That's why longtime NBA insider Brian Windhorst believes the current waiting game shouldn't surprise anyone.
It's all one-way information, and this is how his previous free agencies have operated. Just nobody has known.
One thing that separates LeBron James from almost every other superstar in NBA history is how he handles free agency.
Teams spend weeks preparing presentations, building championship plans, and making their strongest recruiting pitches.
LeBron, meanwhile, doesn't rush to respond.
He simply listens, gathers information, and lets every organization reveal how badly they want him. That's why the silence shouldn't be mistaken for uncertainty. It's strategy. Every extra day without a decision increases the pressure on teams. Executives become more creative, recruiting efforts become more aggressive, and organizations begin looking for new ways to get their message directly to LeBron.
That's exactly why seeing someone like Bob Myers publicly discuss Philadelphia on Rich Paul's podcast felt so extraordinary.
The longer LeBron waits, the more desperate the competition becomes. Reports have even suggested that his decision could take another week, making this one of the longest free agency processes of his career.
But history tells us that's nothing new. LeBron has navigated this path several times before, and he understands the value of patience better than anyone. There's another part of this story that many fans are overlooking. Despite all the attention surrounding his next destination,
none of the teams pursuing him are competing by offering the biggest contract.
In fact, money has become one of the least important factors in this entire race. Last season, LeBron earned more than $50 million, yet the expectation now is that he could accept a veteran minimum contract worth only a small fraction of that amount. Because of the NBA's salary cap rules, such a deal would barely affect a contender's payroll, making him one of the most affordable elite players available. What's remarkable is that this isn't happening because his production has declined dramatically. Advanced player value models still estimate that LeBron performs at the level of a player worth tens of millions of dollars each season.
If he willingly signs for far less, whichever franchise lands him would receive extraordinary value, possibly one of the greatest bargains the league has ever seen. That changes the entire free agency landscape, since
nearly every contender can afford him financially.
The battle shifts away from contracts and toward opportunity. The real question isn't who can pay LeBron the most.
It's who can give him the best chance to compete for another championship.
Every contender has a different path.
Cleveland has reportedly explored roster moves that could create additional financial flexibility. Miami and Golden State have access to salary cap exceptions that would allow them to make competitive offers. But even those contracts fall well below LeBron's market value.
The numbers themselves are no longer the deciding factor. Instead, everything comes down to basketball. At this stage of his career, LeBron isn't chasing the biggest paycheck. He's chasing the best situation, one that gives him a realistic opportunity to add another championship to his legacy. That brings us to perhaps the most important question of all. If money isn't driving the decision, then what is? The answer may have surfaced during Bob Myers' appearance with Rich Paul and Max Kellerman. As they reflected on the Lakers' season, the conversation shifted away from contracts and toward LeBron's role on the court. Questions were raised about how the offense functioned, whether the team's stars were used effectively, and if LeBron had enough control over the game. Rich Paul's response hinted that those basketball concerns, not financial ones, may ultimately determine where LeBron plays next.
And if that's true, this entire offseason is about much more than free agency.
It's about finding the final championship opportunity in one of the greatest careers the NBA has ever seen.
You're not wrong. You're 50% right in what you said in terms of just psychologically. Obviously, I'm not the third option. We know that. No day.
One statement from Rich Paul may have revealed more than anything else during the entire conversation.
When the topic of LeBron's role came up, his response was simple. LeBron isn't a third option.
That wasn't just a casual remark. It sounded like a clear message about what LeBron expects from his next team. The implication was hard to miss.
No matter where LeBron decides to play, he isn't looking to fade into the background or become a supporting piece.
Even at this stage of his career, he still believes he should be one of the primary leaders on the floor. However, the statistics make the discussion much more complicated.
While Rich Paul argued that the Lakers should have relied on LeBron more, several numbers suggest the team remained highly competitive even when he wasn't on the court.
Lineups built around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves produced impressive results, and at different points during the season,
Los Angeles continued winning despite LeBron's absence. But numbers don't tell the entire story. Perhaps the bigger issue was how LeBron was being used.
Instead of handling the ball and creating offense, he often found himself standing in the corner as a spot-up shooter.
That shift dramatically reduced his involvement
and coincided with a noticeable drop in his three-point shooting efficiency compared to the previous season. For a player who has spent 2 decades controlling games with the ball in his hands, that kind of role can be difficult to accept.
It's easy to understand why he might prefer a team that allows him to direct the offense and make decisions instead of simply waiting for passes. That's exactly where Bob Myers' pitch becomes so interesting.
His argument wasn't only about why Philadelphia is a championship contender, it was about offering LeBron a basketball situation where his influence, leadership, and playmaking would once again be at the center of everything.
That could ultimately become the biggest factor in this entire free agency saga.
he chooses somebody besides Cleveland or Miami. Because Cleveland and Miami, it's a very clean decision. It makes sense. Does he want to deal with people calling him a ring chaser or what have you? I think that's an extra layer.
LeBron's next decision isn't only about basketball, it's about legacy. Returning to Cleveland or Miami would be easy to justify because he already delivered championships there.
Choosing Philadelphia, however, would open a completely new chapter, and with it, intense criticism from fans and analysts questioning how that move shaped his all-time legacy.
If he goes to Philly, people gonna say he's ring chasing to catch Michael. If he goes to Golden State, they're gonna say he's ring chasing.
To be fair, there's another way to look at this entire situation. At 41 years old, LeBron James has already accomplished almost everything a player could dream of. He's won multiple championships, broken countless records, built a billion-dollar brand, and secured his place among the greatest players in NBA history. Because of that, it's possible that his next decision is no longer driven by money or public opinion. Rich Paul has suggested that LeBron's priority is simply finding the place where he'll be happiest. If that's true, then criticism about ring chasing becomes irrelevant.
In that case, choosing the strongest roster available would make perfect sense.
And that's exactly the argument Philadelphia is trying to sell. Still,
I'm not convinced legacy has stopped mattering to LeBron.
Throughout his career, he's openly talked about chasing greatness and building a lasting legacy. Those aren't the words of someone who suddenly ignores how history will remember him. That's one reason Miami continues to make so much sense.
Returning to a franchise where he already won championships would likely create far less controversy than joining a team he's never represented before.
Adding even more intrigue, reports suggest Giannis Antetokounmpo is interested in teaming up with LeBron in Miami, and his reaction during a recent live stream only fueled more speculation about that possibility.
LeBron went to Cleveland? LeBron signed with Cleveland. Bro, is this real?
I don't know if they're spamming it.
Come on, man, don't do this, man. Give me a heart attack.
Not long ago, many fans believed the Golden State Warriors were the clear favorites to land LeBron James.
But as this offseason has unfolded, that narrative has started to fall apart.
Even when speculation was at its highest, there were reasons to doubt that Golden State would ultimately become his next destination. Recent reports have only strengthened that belief. According to NBA insider Shams Charania, the Warriors themselves don't view LeBron as a realistic addition unless they can first pull off another blockbuster move bringing Anthony Davis to Golden State. Without that,
they reportedly believe they're not among LeBron's top choices. The problem is that acquiring Davis would be incredibly difficult. Salary cap experts believe the Warriors would have to part with nearly all of their valuable future draft assets,
and any deal would likely revolve around Jimmy Butler as the centerpiece going the other way. Even then, there's another obstacle.
Reports indicate that Davis' current organization has little interest in moving him at all.
Comments from team leadership following the NBA draft only reinforced the idea that they still view him as a major part of their long-term plans, making a trade even less likely.
I look at it when I talk to teams now as kind of a hierarchy of Cleveland, Miami, Philadelphia, and then I think there's some teams on the periphery.
Golden State hasn't given up hope, but its path to landing LeBron James is becoming increasingly difficult. The Warriors' biggest obstacle is that the move they need first appears unlikely to happen.
Still, the organization continues searching for ways to strengthen its chances.
Draymond Green even declined a contract worth nearly $28 million, giving the front office additional financial flexibility.
Reports also suggest Draymond has been spending time with LeBron, hoping to convince him face-to-face. However, Brian Windhorst cautioned against reading too much into those developments, explaining that Draymond's decision only indicated he expected LeBron to leave the Lakers, not that he knew LeBron was headed to Golden State.
And with AD again, he wants to be here, we want him here. We'll have that conversation in the middle of August when we can officially have that.
While much of the attention has been focused on Philadelphia and Golden State, Cleveland has quietly remained one of the most intriguing possibilities for LeBron James.
The Cavaliers haven't made the loudest headlines,
but several recent moves have sparked speculation that they could be preparing for something much bigger. One
of the biggest developments was Donovan Mitchell,
agreeing to a massive 4-year extension worth $273 million.
On the surface, it looked like a routine superstar contract, but the timing raised questions.
Because the extension doesn't begin immediately, Mitchell could have waited another year and potentially secured an even larger deal.
Instead, he chose to commit to Cleveland early, many around the league believe that decision sends a strong message about the franchise's future.
By locking himself in for the long term,
Mitchell provides stability and shows that the Cavaliers are serious about remaining championship contenders. Some analysts have even suggested that this could reassure LeBron if he were considering a return.
unlike the uncertainty that surrounded the end of his previous run in Cleveland, the organization now has an established superstar committed to staying.
Whether that connection influenced Mitchell's decision is unknown, but it has certainly added another fascinating layer to LeBron's free agency story.
One free agent out there, LeBron James, and he's shown some interest in being a Golden State Warrior potentially. Any idea or comment on that idea of playing with LeBron James?
Say more so, I'm interested to just play golf with LeBron. We'll handle the basketball stuff, but I want to see the golf LeBron free agent.
League insiders increasingly believe Cleveland could be LeBron's destination, but no one is claiming certainty.
Even Brian Windhorst admitted that much of the speculation is based on intuition rather than concrete evidence. Just days earlier, Philadelphia was viewed as the favorite, proving that the situation remains completely unpredictable for everyone.
I talk to people in Philly, I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, we're afraid it's Cleveland.
Adding even more mystery to the situation, LeBron's former Cavaliers teammate Richard Jefferson recently claimed that he already knows exactly how this free agency story ends.
During a podcast appearance, he joked that he knows the destination, the timeline, and every detail, but promised he couldn't reveal any of it. Whether he was serious or simply having fun is impossible to know, but if someone truly had that information, it likely would have surfaced by now. Most people viewed the comments as playful speculation, rather than a genuine leak tortoise. Oh, where do I believe LeBron ultimately ends up? After looking at everything, the endless rumors, Bob Myers publicly making Philadelphia's case, the constant speculation surrounding the Warriors, and all the reports from league insiders, I keep coming back to the same conclusion. The financial side of this decision doesn't seem to matter.
LeBron has already shown he's willing to sacrifice salary if it gives him the best chance to compete.
Legacy, however, still feels incredibly important.
That's why Cleveland and Miami continue to stand out as the safest basketball and historical fits. Then there's everything happening behind the scenes.
Rival executives reportedly believe Cleveland remains the biggest threat. Donovan Mitchell has committed to the franchise for the future, and the Cavaliers have maintained the flexibility needed to make a reunion possible. Even LeBron spending time back in Akron during the holiday only added fuel to the speculation because of all that. My prediction is simple. I think LeBron returns to Cleveland one final time, bringing his incredible NBA journey full circle. That said,
Philadelphia has definitely made this race much more interesting.
Bob Myers' public recruiting effort and the team's aggressive roster moves have turned the 76 ERS into a legitimate contender for his signature. Now, I want to hear your opinion.
Does Philadelphia have enough to convince LeBron to make one final championship push there? Or is Cleveland still the most likely destination? Share your prediction in the comments, and let's see who gets it right when the decision is finally announced.